Hello there, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. So I know this is a little bit different of a setup. I am actually about to go home because this is the weather outside. Yes. The campus is completely covered in snow. But I just wanted to intro y'all into this video. So this is actually before. This video is everything happening before the snowstorm. I went to Disney World. It was a fantastic time, and I made myself a Princess Tiana dress because I bought one from Walmart and it felt like parachute plastic and it did not fit. And every option that was what I was looking for was not in my size. So I decided I'm just going to make it myself. That was quite a challenge. There are a lot of videos of people making Milkmaid style dresses. However, a lot of them do not have the same body type as me. So their measurements were much smaller than what I needed. I am about a size 12. I'll put my measurements down below so that if you are also someone who is a little bit more of a curvy body and you want to make something for yourself and you haven't been able to find the right patterns and inspiration out there, that is what I'm here for. So this was a really hard process. I was basically pattern making a couple pieces by myself and like doing a lot of Frankensteining of different people's ideas together until I was able to get it to match my own measurements. But I got there. It took a long time. I did leave some stuff out because this video would take probably 2 hours because it was so much. So I do hope that what is here is enough for y'all. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment below. I'm happy to let you know how I did something because it's just too much. It was too much. But it is finished and I hope you guys enjoy, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Alright, so these are all my cutout pieces. I will put the measurements up on the screen or in the description box below. We have all of our top part of the dress. So this is the top center, this is the top sides, the breast, and the back. There are 4 of the back, 4 of the sides, 2 of the center, and 2 of the cups. Now, I just used the same fabric because I had purchased enough of it, but ideally, if you don't have enough of your pretty fabric, you would use 2 for the lining, 2 for your main fabric, 2 for lining, 2 for main fabric, 1 for lining, 1 for main fabric, and just 2 of the main fabric here. Then for the skirt, I took this pattern from Butterwick B5030. It's a basic skirt pattern, and I cut 3 of these out. And we will finagle a little bit to see if I need to make any more seams in order to get the slit that I want in the place where I want it. I used the size 20 on this skirt pattern. These are all of our pieces, and we are going to start with the top. So first, I'm going to take my center fronts and my sides, pretty sides together, and we're going to connect both the lining and the front pieces. So the shorter sides are gonna match up here, and we will repeat the same on those pieces. Take it to the sewing machine and we will just stitch down these edges. Good morning. So here we have our 4 back pieces. These are the 2 lining and the 2 main fabric. Now what I did is fold them right sides together on the side that matches the length of the edge of my bodice. And I am going to do a dart for these back pieces, starting a 1/2 inch from the bottom and going up to 10 inches. So you can see there's a little triangle here, so when you open, there's now like a seam. And you can really see it here. Alright, let's do that 3 more times. So now we're gonna take our bodice pieces, both the lining and the front. So this is my lining because it has all my markings on it. And this is a water erasable marker. This is our bodice piece, lining. And then I'm gonna take one of my now back pieces, and the point of where we started, so that 1/2 inch from the bottom, that's going to be the bottom of the bodice. So take this, line it up on the bottom, up to the top, and then we'll do the same for the other side. And now we're just going to sew down these edges, and we're going to do the same for our other 2 back and bodice piece. So now we've got our back piece with the dart attached to our bodice side, it has the curve, which is attached to the bodice center, and then the same pieces on the other side. And now we're going to move on to the boob cups and get that started. Hey, this is Editing Alondra, so I just want to cut in to give you guys a quick rundown of what happened when it came to the most difficult parts of this top, which were the breast cups and the sleeves. So with the breast cups, I initially made one pattern, and it basically used my bra to outline it in order to get the right cup size, and I will include that video that I followed for that tutorial. Now that one is going to be if you want 2 separate tops that will cinch at the top to give that illusion of like gathered, but it ultimately never connects. And the top that I was following, that one had a string coming from both sides of the breast cups in order to then tie to make a little keyhole. And that was the PaperStxrs version. So if you guys are interested in that first version, it's linked down below. However, if you were interested in the one that I ultimately ended up doing, that one's PaperStxrs. And after a lot of time and different things, I did end up following her pattern. However, I just added on a couple more inches in order for it to match me. And it actually still ended up being a little bit too big. So like I said, my measurements are down below, and the link to her video is too. I will also put in the measurements that I used. However, just know that if you are similar to my size, you might want to go a little bit smaller on those measurements, just because there's a lot of room to grow, and I don't think I'm going to be growing that much. So I just want to make you aware of that, and I think that's it for now. So before we attach these 2 pieces together, I just want to show y'all that I did shorten my bodice just ever so slightly. I took where the bodice side and bodice center met, because it seemed like my bodice was a lot wider and a little bit more fabric than I need. I just did that to these 2. Now I'm going to flip this to the right side. And now take where we did the basting stitch and where it's together at the bottom, and connect that to the front. And this is not my lining piece, this is my main fabric. So we're going to put these pretty sides together at the center, 2 inches from the top. That's where these are going to come together, because this part is not being gathered. So we just want to pin along the side. Okay. And then we'll have all of this left over, and this is what we'll gather. We'll do the same to the other side. take my top thread and I'm just gonna pull. And as you're pulling, you just wanna disperse the gathers. And you want to keep pulling until it matches up to the same size as this right here. So once you finish meeting up the edges and then you'll pin it, you can start to get the idea of how the bodice will look. We see the gathered breast and how it comes up, or the gathered bust, sorry. And then this is all going to be cinched in at the top as well, because that's where our drawstring will come. So this is starting to come together, and we have this little bit left over, not only for the drawstring, but also so that we can make our little armpit cutout, but that will come next. So for now, I am going to do the same, gather and pin to this side, and then we are going to add our lining. So I know this looks like a mess. So what I did was I took my lining, pretty side, and I laid it down and I matched up my centers. Then I took the pins that were connecting just the bust cups and the front piece, and I'm just basically moving them. So now I'm going to sandwich together all three pieces. So I went along like here, going along, just removing and repinning. And for me personally, I am pinning in a place where and moving things just a little bit so that I know when I go to stitch it down, my basting stitch that has created these ruffles, that is not going to be exposed. So I want to make sure that it is above where my stitch line is going to go. And this is a little bit tricky, you know, some things didn't line up just as perfectly as I wanted to, so you might just have to take your time. Well, you will have to take your time and finagle things just ever so slightly. But as you work your way from the center along the bust, and then you do need to come up the side, and this is the part that took a little bit more brain power because it looks really weird and really messy. But as I just tested, you'll see that when you flip it right side out and you match up the backs, that this is what it's going to look like, and that's the way that you want it, because this still allows for you to make your casing for the drawstring and then also to make an armpit hole. So trust the process. I know it's a little bit scary and messy looking, but that's why you just take it really nice and slow, and you can do checks like that. And I also noticed that when I flipped that around, I could see this basting stitch. So I'm just going to make sure, I want to add one more pin here, that when I do go to stitch, that you don't see that basting stitch. So now this side is pinned down, and I'm going to do it the same to the other side. One more thing to note is that I did go ahead and take my side, front, and center pieces, and I did another centimeter or half an inch stitch just to tighten that up so that that matches. And then on top of matching our center seams, I also went and matched my side seams over here, so that those were my anchors, and then everything else you just kind of finagle in between. And then the last thing I'm going to make sure I absolutely match up is the top with my top, because if you remember, I made sure that my cup went a little bit above it. So I'm going to match these guys up. There we are. And now just work our way through it. Okay. So now I'm going to stitch all the way along these pinning, being aware of where my basting stitch is so that that's not exposed. So here we have it. My seams line up. Here too. We are looking good. I am very pleased with this. Very pleased indeed. What I'm going to do next is just make a string. So I've got a bunch of scrap fabric, and if I don't have a piece long enough, I am going to just stitch a bunch of pieces together, a bunch of ends to make, you want about 1 inch or so thick, and then I'm just gonna fold that in half and then turn it inside out so that we see the pretty side of the fabric, and then we will make the casings at the top and feed those through with a safety pin. So here we are just going to cut out the armhole, and there is no measurement here, so really just do what feels right. You don't want it to be too deep, but you don't want it to be too shallow, so just kind of make a curve mark and cut right along that. And then we are also going to sew along the back panel so that the lining and the main piece are both together in the back along the top. Okay, so now we're going to attach the sleeves, and I already have this one attached on this side, so it attached right where we made that curve, and you can start to get a picture for this is the poofy gathered part, and this part's going to gather down here. So in order to attach it, we turn our sleeve right side out. I'm pausing it here to also let you know right on this seam is where I added in some more fabric. The girl's arm in the video is much skinnier than mine, so I needed more fabric on the width of the sleeve, so just keep that in mind as well. We're going to take our center part of the curve. So here's that curve. Take the center and match it up with the center part of our curve here. Just gonna find center about there and put them pretty side to pretty side, and we want to leave about 1 inch of fabric so that we can do a double fold and make a casing for the elastic that's going to go through here. So when you find your center, remember to leave about 1 inch from where the bodice is and where the edge of the sleeve is. So now we should have a full bodice with very oversized floppy sleeves. And now we're going to grab our elastic and start cinching in the sleeves. And for the sleeves, I do mention it, but just know I followed like 3 different tutorials trying to figure it out, and do whatever works best for you. I did still end up with PaperStxrs pattern, but it just was really confusing. But it was just the sleeves and the breast cups, they gave me the most trouble. So when you go to tackle this, just be aware that those 2 areas they're not as self-explanatory as the others. All right, as you were. I have made my puffy sleeves, and they have the elastic in the top and the bottom. And so now I'm just going to attach this bottom curve to the curve that we cut in our bodice here with like sides together. But long story short, there was no nice way of hemming and this edge and making the casing. Then I realized that the sleeve was too tight because I followed that other girl's dimensions and I have a much larger arm than her. So I had to undo a lot of stitches and stitch in just with some scrap fabric I had, a new panel, and then shove in those the elastics and get it to this point. So does it look good? Yes. Did it take me way too long? Absolutely. So watch somebody else's video because I cannot help you. I just did a lot of things wrong in order to make this look kind of right. But now I'm going to just attach these sleeves and we will move on to the skirt. So moving on to the skirt, I'm going to start with the waistband. And I took my 1-inch piece of elastic and I measured around my waist. And then I also stretched it over my hips to make sure that it would be able to fit. So you want it to fit your waist nicely, but you don't want it too snug that it can't go over your hips since there is no zipper. This is just a pull-on elastic skirt. And I am just doing a bunch of zigzags and backs and forths just to make sure that this is as secure as possible. And then I'm going to cut off the excess and then we'll move on to the actual skirt, which I have started by already stitching the side seams. And now we're going to fold over the top edge in order to fit in our elastic just how we did the sleeves. There is no extra waistband for this skirt, but you are more than welcome to create an extra one if you prefer. Here's the skirt on. As you can see, I'm just kind of folding over the flap so I know where to hem my slit, but I'm so happy it fits around my waist really nicely and it looks exactly how I envisioned it. In the next step, we are going to just do a rolled hem and stitch up the slit seam. Here I am measuring how much fabric I need to cut off from the back of the shirt because I just had too much, and I'm just going to stitch to make a new seam and do that on both sides. Next, I'm going to prep the zipper by sizing it up and seeing how much of an overlap I might have, referring to, the bottom of the shirt to make sure that it'll separate properly. And once you kind of got an idea, just pin it in place and sew your zipper in.
If you find the one, you should never give her up. I think it's the way life changes when in love, yeah. I surround my soul with the positive.
Okay, so it's late and I know I look crazy. What y'all just saw was me finish up the zipper. However, it ain't right. It ain't right. So there's way too much gapping up here and it's very comfortable right around my waist. It's like right here. But then again, it's a bit loose down here, but really I say if I had to change anything, it's just this part is too much. So part of me is thinking I'll need to make some new measurements, figure out where to take in on either side of the zipper and re-put it back in. And then another part of me is thinking like when I go like this, it does stretch across my back. It does still give me like a bubble here. So there's that. But I was thinking maybe I could add some elastic just to the top edge of this on either side of the zipper, so from like here to the zipper on both sides, and then that might help it just gather and give me the shape that I want without having to keep making more cuts and adjustments. But we are so close. This is almost a thing. Here's a quick look at how I made my elastic stretch along the back. Just cut a piece to size and then stretch it and sew it into place. And then I'm going to do the darts just to narrow in my back panel so that it fits me a little bit better.